So I just sent an email with the slide adjustments, and here's an explanation as to what Faith and I spoke about. If we start with the buyer presentation, this slide right here has come up a couple of times. And I think we all remember why. It just has to do with trying to start squeezing all of these agents into this slide. And Faith, I'm sure you recall, you brought up a really good point, and that is to just try to make this a more of a timeless slide, that the agent can still say the same information, but we don't have to try to keep adjusting and adding and taking away people. And then one that actually is more impactful. So this was the slide that we had. You would go from buyer agency to the showing agents, and this is where we are now. You wanted one that resembled some of the others I had created, so I believe that this does that. It's got, most buyer's agents are overloaded, and then the agent says whatever is a part of y'all's script here. But it, the big impact here, and you could even play off of this, is a lot of times when somebody is overloaded, they are looking at the other line ringing like, oh my gosh, do I need to answer it? Or they're trying to do too many things. So the pictures speak for themselves. And when you go from that, then that it has a very confusing, the rain is, everything's supposed to be, semi-chaotic. And then we go to this slide, and everything looks very well put together, clean, organized. And then the words we talked about were dedicated showing agent. And on purpose, I have, a man here and a woman. I considered it being the same person. But honestly, this slide is about them seeing a one-on-one interaction with a couple. They're happy. And it's kind of obvious they're going over paperwork here. And then the same with this lady. It looks like she's showing a place. We've got a couple. Everybody looks clean cut. And then the logo here. So there's the difference. It just was a little easier to explain here. And then we've got the slide that goes up here, where we come down, and we'll talk about this slide as I'll show it to you in the listing presentation. That's where I initially adjusted it. So this is where the power of the team slide is, and it's a very similar slide to that showing showing agents, just in the sense that there's this constant thing going on where we're fitting people on here, and then there's these titles. And Faith, you and I talked about this in depth, and so this is what we've come up with. So what I did is took that slide and actually went directly off of Faith's suggestions. We had to add JB and Bonnie, and then as far as keeping my face here is for operations, we said, hey, why not? Let's do that. Faith, you wanted me to move us down here, which I did, and then I really cleaned this area up. While we were brainstorming, we talked about taking and having just listing managers and buyer's agents up here or under here, so that if any one of these people were doing the presentation, they wouldn't have the wrong heading underneath them. Somebody wouldn't scratch their head and be like, why is that going on? So the other piece was there's this weird, and this was something I had pointed out, just this square going on. It just wasn't balanced. So I brought the black all the way across. I did this cool fade up here on the header. These words still do need to be centered in this area, but it spruces this up, and it looks good. And then I brought this logo that makes this another square where this is centered inside of it. So this same slide, what I ended up doing is in the buyer presentation is I inserted it. Basically, that slide is the same exact thing or trying to do the same exact thing as this slide. So I inserted it into this presentation just in case whatever somebody didn't agree or something was going on there. I also like the way this looks, but we start adding people in here, it messes with these words and the whole thing gets messed up. So for the moment, I believe that this slide can work in both presentations, and it fixes the need to also continue to redesign this. And then, as time goes on, we've all, can come up with ideas on how to solve this. I think one of the good ones to keep in reserve and keep in mind is how we used to have two. You start to divide these people out and just make it another slide that ends up being full of people instead of continuing to try to, squeeze people onto a slide. If we're wanting to, just keep these real faces up here, I think there is some importance to that. On the showing agent slide, I think the dedicated showing agent, I think we can get away with not having to do all the adding and subtracting. So anyhow, that's how I've used this slide also in the buyer presentation. Thanks.